Okay, so hopefully the background noise isn't too insane. Welcome to the Habitat Open Source Project public issue triage for the week of February 7th, 2018. Um, we're getting a late start, so I apologize for that. We're going to go ahead and just dive right in. Since I've got a lot of background noise, I'm going to probably mute myself a lot. And luckily we have a bunch of stakeholders on the call this week, so it should make it easy to have some conversation around the things we need to have conversations on, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and share the window real quick. And so this is the query. If I could get, actually, I should be able to do this. Let me post the query real quick. Great. All right, so ready to go. That's in general, so if you're following along, you can follow along in your own browser if you'd prefer. And we're going to start with issue number 4162. I'm not sure I understand what's being asked here.
The GitHub link you put, those commits have disappeared.
Yes, those
just looking at that as well.
They must have gotten moved into the builder repository.
No, I think it was. I think it was probably a rebased commit. I remember this vaguely. I think this might have to do with we can specify like an arbitrary identifier for which supervisor and launcher get baked into a Docker export. I ran into this earlier, actually. If it's not like core supervisor something, like if you're making like a supervisor that you've like pushed to your own origin, because of how we're currently figuring out what binary to use and look up, if it's not core, then we don't find it, and it tries to. You'll get a container, and it'll have your binaries in it, but it will try, the hab binary will not see those. It'll be looking for a core supervisor, and they'll try to pull those in from builder. So I was able to like hack around this temporarily in something that I was doing where I needed to get a customized, like fully customized thing off to get some evaluation from a customer, but it was a horrible hack and not at all a permanent thing. And we need to probably look at how we're determining what specific package to pull in. So there's some subtlety around this. It's also legitimate. It's also potentially a relatively not widespread issue, maybe, like only if you're like making your own packages that are in your own repository and then wanting to get those into a Docker container. So.
Okay, and it's specifically when you're building customized packages of the supervisor or the launcher for your own personal use.
Yeah, like if you're working on a feature that spans multiple of these crates and you want to try and test it out.
Got it.
In that way.
Is this something then that we will resolve ourselves?
It might be worth looking into, yeah. And I don't yet know like how high that should bubble up. I think it hit Zishan here because he's working on this stuff, but he's also not in. He doesn't have access to like our core origin, and so he has to build stuff like in his own origin. So I think maybe if they continue to run into this, or we have more external contributors of these kind of core things, and that would bump that up, I think.
Okay, cool. So for now, I've put that in accepted minor. I've added a bug flag to it, a builder flag to it, a label to it. So let's go ahead and move on from there to 4164. Yep. So this is the same issue that we were actually. I was talking to Fletcher and CM about this morning, which is this bug where, since we don't bubble up logging into like standard error into logging, some of these builds that die for spurious reasons early on in the build, what ends up happening is that your build will like kick off, you'll get no output at all, and then eventually it just times out and dies. And this is kind of a screen grab for that.
I believe I think this actually takes place before we even start a job, so like it wouldn't show up in the logs anyway, because that logging hasn't begun at this point. Because
that might be something for us to consider. You're right. User might not know that's the issue. If maybe that logging output was able to be created earlier, maybe we could at least throw out that at least the failure case that we couldn't clone it. I suppose we could always add a line just saying repo cloned, and then you're on to the next thing. That might be useful.
Because effectively the output that we're exposing right now is basically like when you get into the studio and start building it. This particular issue is when we're trying to set up the environment so that we can then go into it and build. So
yeah, I think the issue there are a bunch of issues that we have. Well, I say a bunch, I shouldn't say a bunch. There are at least a couple of issues that we have that happen at this point in the process of the build in Builder, and that never gets exposed to the user. And so what it just looks like is just a random ass failure without any context. I think that's kind of a bad thing.
For sure.
Yeah, we should address this. I was trying to find, like, I almost want a tag or a theme of this is like straight up just a UX fail that we can fix, or put another way, like I view this as a bug. It's just like it's behaving the way it is. It's just not the way people are expecting it to be.
Yeah, I added an issue earlier today. It's kind of tangentially related to this when we were talking this morning about being able to better differentiate like the sources of errors when we have issues with build jobs, issues that are, come out of failures of our code, that we control when we're setting things up, versus errors that come from, maybe a malformed plan file that would be like a sort of a user error. So that's kind of tangentially related into here, because that's dealing with issues that are solely our responsibility. That issue is more around like getting those exposed in logs, so that's easier for us as operators of the platform to figure out what's going on, but also being able to expose at least some of that to the users to where they could see what's going on, because that would be better than a blank screen.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so for now, I've added this into accepted minor and put a bug label on it for builder. We can come back to this. So I've got a task today that I'm planning to get a tracking issue written that's specifically related to these issues and a couple of the issues that Chris opened this morning. So keep an eye out for that later today. We'll create an issue that kind of aggregates this all together.
Actually, we should move that issue over into the builder repository, I believe.
We totally should.
Oh, that's a cool idea. What are you doing? That's how that works?
That is how that works.
Wow.
You have to have the ZenHub Chrome plugin.
That's sort of crazy.
Oh, the perils of autocomplete.
Yeah, especially when it just doesn't pick up the person. It's right there, but it's not working right here.
You're actually in the builder issue right now.
Oh, you're right. So it looks like the plugin actually moves you. Yeah, there we go. This is the one that we want. Sneaky, sneaky.
Wow.
I ran into that so many times when I was working on scaffolding.
This is like a weird thing I've never thought of before, is being able to move an issue. It's kind of amazing. I say move because like I know it's just closing one and then duplicating it and adding it, but a lot easier than doing it manually.
Does the issue move not? I mean, it looks like it adds a comment already, right? That references it.
Only it's only if you've got the plugin.
Oh.
Well, actually,
It's the plugin moves it. Refresh this page in. It should. Yeah, it adds a link to where the new one is.
it totally does. So I can
Nice,
Yeah,
which will track it back.
And there's a comment that says, yeah. So it should be
easier.
It should be trackable.
Wow.
Cool. All right. Well, that makes it pretty straightforward. Let's go ahead and move on to 2957.
If I recall correctly, I believe Elliot was doing some work with Event Server and Firewatch.
Yeah. This also looks like it's actually already in a project, so it probably shouldn't have shown up here. So let me see.
Is this the right query? Because it looks different than what I'm seeing.
I agree. I
There,
had
that's better.
Yeah, I hit back
There we
one
go.
too many times. 4187.
Sorry, Elliot. We're not going to address your thing from August now.
Too bad.
If you were on the call, it might have gone differently.
All right, I'm going to add a comment to this saying C pattern in the new tar exporter, which has stripped out a ton of the Docker specific stuff and refined it a bit.
We probably need to check in with Romain just to see where he's at, if he's had a chance to actually implement this, because I know he was working on it. So I can follow up with him later today just to see if he needs any help or if he's blocked or if he's planning to keep working on it or not. I would assume that we're all in agreement that this work needs to happen.
Yeah.
Cool. Then I'm going to go ahead and add it to the accepted minor milestone, and we can move on.
The sooner we can get all the exporters in sort of a common pattern and using common code to the extent possible, I think the better it will be for everyone.
I feel like this is foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah.
Wait for it.
4205 is the next issue.
Is CFizing Cloud Foundryizing?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
And this is the one that is explicitly using the old Dockerize code under the hood.
That's right. This was a bit of a timing thing that we were just starting to like take the next swipe at exporters while we in parallel were working on CF exporter or Cloud Foundry exporter.
So this one, much like the ACI exporter, probably also needs to be rewritten. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in this case, it's possible there's either the use case, the way this is set up, or maybe a subtle bug in the current one. It looks like it's possible to reproduce it because there's a lot of lines of stuff in there. So yeah, that's hopefully something we can fix and then just put that on the list to eventually revisit.
Question is if the bug is in the CFI's code itself or the underlying Dockerize code that it's using. And if it's the latter, if it's the former, then you could probably make a tweet. But having to edit the Dockerize code, I wonder if it's just better to bite the bullet and rewrite this one in Rust as well to take advantage of everything.
Yeah, the rewrite is not so bad once you figure out the pattern.
And this one is also backed by Docker as well. So likely even the Kubernetes exporter as well. Like, yeah, the pattern's getting more strongly established, which is nice.
Yeah, the Kubernetes and Helm exporters are built on the Docker exporter. So yeah, there's prior art that could hopefully make rewriting this one an easier lift.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So for now, I've put that in accepted minor as well, and I've just left a note for Nathan, just that this is one of the ones that we're planning to rewrite. I mean, since most of that code would basically be gone in this rewrite, hopefully, hopefully this bug would be resolved by that. All right. The next one's going to be 4096.
So this was closed and then reopened by me, which I don't remember doing. But I obviously got past it somehow. So I think with the changes to the dev environment that we've done, this may be pretty out of date.
That is what I'm hoping as well. Assuming that the use case here was to work on Builder, I guess. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm hoping we could close it with that. Well, I don't even know if we can find the PR, but
the original person that opened the issue actually closed it, and then Nell reopened it. So I guess if Nell is fine with it being closed,
yeah, I think we can go ahead and close this.
All right, sweet. That makes it easy. Those are my favorite ones. All right, so the next one's going to be 4213.
yeah, I think this is on a roadmap. And since our fearless product leader has added it, I would say probably likely to happen.
Yeah, I'd say probably within the 100% range.
Yep, our fearless and now award-winning product leader has said we'll do it, so we'll do it.
Sweet. Let's go ahead and move on then. The next one's going to be 4069. That's a super old version of Habitat.
Yeah. Yeah, I would just get a follow-up on this and make sure that it's still happening in the latest version. Although, oh, I actually think this might, I think I remember this issue because he was in general. I think he was force halting his machines, which the supervisor doesn't terminate gracefully in that case and leaves it hanging around. So he got a lot of weird behavior.
There's not much we can do about that. I mean, unless I'm mistaken, right? Like,
well, I mean, the launcher could be a little bit smarter about seeing a PID file, recognizing there's no PID, and then it's a matter of like, do we delete it or delete it and scream? Like, there's probably a couple things we could do there to make that a little bit nicer.
I thought there was some logic in the supervisor or launcher that did something along those lines.
The hard part could be who's checking for what when. So like the launcher assumes I'm like effectively the technical parent process and the supervisor's helping to kind of manage that state. It depends if the supervisor's checking for it, because the supervisor knows now that it could restart and the launcher is going to keep the service running. The launcher is not necessarily expecting to come back with PIDs. Yeah, that's something we're thinking through. I bet we could probably do some stuff to help there. This is definitely a workaround. That is assuming that you're coming up and you know you're clean. Probably not like a super recommended thing all the time to do, but
so do we want to put this in accepted minor for now?
Yeah, I think there may be some other quasi-related issues floating around that I need to take a look at. So yeah, let's keep this for right now.
That's an interesting failure scenario of like the idea of like the power goes off and drops and like the machine is just cut. And do we have the ability to recover from that?
Yeah. Yeah, especially in bare metal. I think, where you probably see that more often. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead and move on from there to 4211.
Yeah, this is currently being worked on.
Sweet. I've gone ahead and added that then to accepted minor.
All right, thanks.
And we'll move on from there to an RFC number 3009.
So this might be if you wanted to pre-seed the ring with some config before initially starting up your service.
Yep, but not do it with the user toml, basically.
Right. Interesting.
I might be misreading it. Is that in fact not working here? Is that?
That definitely does not work.
Oh, that should work then. That has worked. I kind of rely on that as well myself.
Yeah,
you can kind of set up your initial peering, put a bunch of config against it so that it's waiting, and then as services boot up, they like get what they actually need.
Right. So what I've seen, where I've seen this is effectively if you do your you do your have config apply and then you load your services. That doesn't.
So have config apply, and you're doing it kind of on your own supervisor, so you're like a ring of one. Is that potential?
Yeah, I think so.
I am actually wondering if this might be an edge condition, because I've definitely done stuff where I'll just set up a supervisor, maybe it's not even doing anything, put a bunch of stuff at that, and then launch a bunch of other supervisors. So they're effectively
peering to that one.
Exactly. So they're in the ring and they're getting hot rumors, basically.
So
I don't know if I've actually tried it against a single supervisor. It should still work as a user experience, but perhaps there's something where like it already knows about those rumors since it initiated it.
Yeah, I think the issue is like if you try to inject that configuration before the ring, before a running resting supervisor knows about the service, it just doesn't. It just throws the config away, or at least it behaves like it does, even if it actually doesn't do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this could be just situation I haven't thought to try, and it's legit. As long as like if a supervisor's ready, the supervisor's up, it's a member of the gossip ring, even if it's only one, or at least like logically speaking. So you should be able to apply config into it and then use it later, even if it's itself. It just might be we maybe didn't fully think that through to make sure that that works. Does that sound right, CM? Like possibly?
Sounds like it might just be with the data structures that we store things in. Like if there's not some service group in there already to attach something to, like
I see.
I don't think that applying config is a way that a service group can get added to that data structure. I think that only happens when members come in and they're like, "Hey, I'm running a service." So so if we're coming in on this path of applying config and there's not already like a landing spot for it, it might just be like, all right, cool, because it doesn't. That's not a way that a group can get into the data structure.
Yeah. Okay.
That's hypothesis. I think that might actually be valid.
Yeah, I could buy that.
Not valid, but what's happening, rather.
Yeah, exactly. To explain why that bad thing is happening.
Probably not valid, because this should probably work.
Yeah.
So this is a bug.
Sounds that way to me.
That's kind of the way I would think about it. Of like, I expected it to work as I'm kind of seeing it described. Yeah. It makes for super nice provisioning patterns where you can like pre-configure and then provision at later points in time or in parallel. That way there's not like a dance of, do this and then apply that and then wait for this and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That eventual consistency is something we want to be consistent with.
Eventually.
Oh.
Awesome. Well, that'll feel good to get that moved out of RFC status. So let's go ahead from there and move on to 4230. I'm going to actually move this over to the core plans repo.
Sounds good.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, we can address this one. At the time when I was writing this node scaffolding, I was trying to figure out what would the default like node thing to run if you didn't have a package JSON or if you had an empty package JSON, and I wasn't sure what that was. So instead, I decided I'll throw an error. And I think like you could run like if there's what server.js and there's another one. There's like a couple things that npm itself would look for, I think. And if we just look at
app.js,
that's it. Yeah. Yeah, it's probably looking for those. And then if that fails, then you've definitely not conformed to a pattern that we understand. So you're gonna have to like tell us more.
All right, sweet. So we can probably move on from there. 4151. Wait, is this the correct thing again? Yeah, that's correct. So we're actually on 4210.
So this is down to getting, I think, George to rebuild some of those Python 2 packages. This is related to the runtime environment variable stuff.
So this is also part of the, like, I ran into this week as well. I'm all for having other folks maintain packages from you know, and having their own origins to maintain packages, but I don't know if it makes sense for us to support somebody else's packages. And by don't know, I mean I definitely do know, and we can't do that. And it's not really tenable. If somebody in the community wants to own a section of stuff and have a top level namespace thing like that, like Python, that's awesome. But we need to have some way. It may be a feedback thing inside of the builder UI, but we need to have some way to highlight like where to go to open issues if the package you're using is not working. And I know we have our upstream URL or whatever, but there might be another option there that needs to go into the plan that's like source repo or source URL or something. Well, not the source URL, that doesn't make sense, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, to be fair, we're still pre 1.0, and it's not always immediately obvious whether a failure is, you know, due to some upstream package or something more fundamental in the system. As time goes on, that should become more and more obvious. So I don't know that I wouldn't say that it's wrong that this was opened here. And I think the solution is clear. We just need to have a chat with George and see if he can get those things rebuilt.
Okay, yeah. So I can message him today. Do we know, does George keep a repo somewhere of these packages?
I would assume that he does. I don't know the address for it off the top of my head.
So what should we do with this card?
Ping George.
I think this is like his username / Python-plans.
Yeah, I would say we should probably close this issue and refer them over to his repo. And drop a link in.
That sounds good.
Yep, I'll do that real quick. George has so many repos. What did you say that it was called, Fletcher?
I think it's Python-plans. I basically did the same thing you did. It's just went looking. Yeah, I think that would be it.
Cool. All right. Great. So let's go ahead and move on. 4308. I would assume that if Garrett opened these, he's probably planning to work them.
Looks like he is working on them.
Okay. All right. It looks like 4151.
Habitat on drones.
I think Graham, I talked to Graham earlier, and he was actually working on compiling this on one of his Raspberry Pi Zeros, and he said it went for 2 days, and then he out of memoried his chip.
I'm not entirely sure I understand the last comment. This could just be coming down to like, what parts of Habitat do you need to build on another platform? Because these parts would be like the builder service itself. That'd be a pretty nice trick.
That's before we moved everything over also, so there could be some confusion there.
Okay, okay.
I would assume if somebody had a way to provide ARM support, we wouldn't deny them merging that, right? We wouldn't.
Yeah, so far it's mostly time and priority. So far, if I had more time, I'd be doing this on the side, I think.
So I don't see this getting prioritized for us on the immediate. It doesn't mean that's not a thing that we won't do eventually, but I'm inclined to put this in help wanted for now.
I think that sounds reasonable.
Okay, I'll put it in help wanted, and for anybody that's watching the stream or watching the recording of the stream later on, just for clarification, I like to tell everybody this whenever we put something in help wanted. Those help wanted issues will get reevaluated as time goes on, and some of them end up getting closed out because of some other thing getting prioritized and bubbling an issue up. So just because it's in help wanted doesn't mean that we're not going to prioritize it. It just means that we have other tasks at hand that we have higher priority. Okay, 440. Oh, actually, hang on a second. I'm just gonna refresh this page here. Yeah, 4400. This one's pretty easy too, because Garrett opened it. We're going to go ahead and just throw it into exception binary.
Yep.
$43.96 is going to be the next issue.
I am hoping that we might have resolved this, or we've made it a lot worse by splitting our repos apart.
Was this back when I think Jamie was updating a bunch of dependencies, and there was a brief time where like it was pointed to something that got force pushed, but then we fixed it?
That's what I thought, and that's why I told him to do a cargo update and a cargo clean, but that did not seem to resolve the issue for him.
For Arch. Oh, geez, I have an Arch system.
Is there a necessity for us to continue to support compiling older versions of the binary? Like, if we've cut this release, but we've moved past version 51, is this still an issue? Like,
it's tough to say. I see that the like the link to the and I can't remember the name of the thing, AUR, actually already references 053.0, so it's already got this week's release. It's possible it might actually work. It was last updated yesterday.
Yeah, from what I recall, somebody force merged something into that IPC channel repo. So I would not expect 0.51 to build right now or ever.
But yeah, like it looks like currently this Arch package is building 0.53. So
cool. We'll get some feedback from Trevor on this, and if he's cool with us closing it out, we'll just close it out because I don't think there's much we can do about it anyways. Let's go ahead and move on to 4094. And this will be the last one that we do.
that is interesting.
Is this the one where it's overwriting the config file? Or it's using...
Well, that is what our exporter does right now, which could probably be made to be better. There is a big difference that the doing the Docker login and the Docker...
I'm pretty sure I destroyed that Docker login, logout, and I actually write out my own config file now.
Okay. Well, so it looks like the Docker that ships with Fedora, it's working. But the Docker that is like shipping with the Habitat package is not working with the same kind of flow. So I'm wondering if there's a version difference or something. Like unauthorized authentication required is kind of a weird thing. I would imagine that Docker Hub hasn't just like dropped support for some old version of Docker that's 4 months old. However, haha, I love that Zishan can like just trace it.
Oh, that was strange. The registry pointed to the Fedora project. I don't know if you caught that.
Really? Oh.
Yeah, scroll up a little bit, or whoever's got the screen right there at the very top. It says tempconfig.json auths registry.fedoraproject.org.
So is Red Hat still doing a like bit of a
Yeah.
boutique fork? Yeah. Okay. Huh. So what are the chances that some vanilla non-Fedora built Docker is going to work the same potentially against not the Docker hub? I'm just wondering if there's some weird small subtlety there. I'm assuming there's like a patch or two. This is probably something worth looking into.
We should, yeah. I don't have a Fedora system just laying around, but
well, I think it might mean that we might not be able to log into whichever whichever endpoint that is of the Fedora one on any box with the Habitat version of Docker.
I see.
I think, or if that's wrong, then whatever assumption I'm making is incorrect. But that's my guess.
All right, I'm going to dump that into accepted miner for now, so we can at least look through it at some point and validate whether or not that is what's going on. So what I actually want to do really quickly here, I know that we started late, so I don't want to end too early. But what I want to do is we're going to actually start remerging our issue triages every week. And part of the reason for that is that we haven't, after we finally got through our backlog of issues in core plans, the number of issues that were coming in have kind of diminished pretty dramatically over the course of the week. So what I'd like to do is, we spend a bunch of time this week on core, but what I'd like to do is for the next couple of minutes hit the same query in core plans and see if there are any issues. To my knowledge, I think there's only a couple that are in there, so this should go pretty quickly. Give me just 1 second to pull that up.
Yeah, and if you could paste that into general, that sounds great.
Absolutely. Okay, I have shared that into general. And yeah, so we've actually only got 2 issues. So perfect.
Hold on a minute. Yeah, look at that. They both are this guy Ian. That's such a
look at that.
Such a coincidence there. Let's do it.
Look at that. Actually, so I know what both of these are, and there's not a need to triage them because I'm working on them right now. So that's great, and we're good to go. And that's going to be it for this week. And we will meet again next week. We're going to meet on Tuesday of next week instead of Wednesday. At least I think we will. And we're going to have a slightly different process next week. So we've had some complications this week on getting started and everything. Between now and next week, I'm going to spend some time on our ZenHub board to get it looking exactly how the projects boards look today. And we're going to start using ZenHub for triaging issues as they come in. And we're going to triage things directly into the backlog, but we're going to use labels to sort those things instead of milestones. So that way, when we're doing our own stand-ups and looking through those issues, we can filter out things that are help wanted that we know are not being prioritized, but we're not ever missing anything that gets an accepted minor flag as just not actually ever hitting our backlog. So we're going to do that starting next week, but I have to do some curation to get everything kind of set up and ready to go. So look forward to that next week. And aside from that, I can stop sharing my screen. I think we're probably good to take a break for now. So thanks everybody.
Thank you everyone. Have a good week.
Really appreciate it.